What's up, everyone? I am Tim Oates on bass, and today is all about first impressions. This video is all about first impressions, and for most musicians, that means the audition to join a band. So the focus song for today is actually going to be the main song I auditioned with for one of my current bands, Burden Affinity. The song is called August. And the reason that this was the main song is because it is one of the most important songs in the catalog. It was the first one that they released. It oftentimes is the first one that we play live. It is almost always the first song that we play in practice. It's just a really important song, and I knew going into this audition that I really needed to nail this one. So I probably spent the most time when I was preparing for my audition on this song. So let's dive into this song, and I'll give you a full breakdown of how I approached learning this song for my audition. So my first step in learning this song was to internalize it. I listened to it as much as I possibly could. Driving around, working out, at the office working, didn't matter. If there was a way for me to get music in my ears, I was doing it, and I was listening to this song, amongst the other ones I was learning as well, but this song more than any. And the reason that's important is because then when you're actually learning to play it, you don't have to sit there and wonder, is this 3 or 4 times? It's much easier to map out the structure of the song and to understand what's coming up while playing. So then once I have it internalized, start actually breaking down and learning the individual notes. And that's, kind of a slow process, but the best way to do that, I've always found, is to, by knowing the structure of it, kind of break it down into the lines. Usually there's only a handful of lines in any given song and just variations of those lines. And I'll show you how those variations work as we go through. So for August, there's actually only 4 main bass lines. And of course variations, there's more parts to the song than there are lines. It's just the different parts will utilize repeats of lines in different fashions. So the 4 main parts, this is how I think of it, are the intro first. So that's the intro line. It's also used in other places, like the verse, the interlude, things like that. Then there's the main verse line, and we'll get to the verse structure because the verse structure is a little different, but the main verse line. That's the main verse line. Then the chorus. That also has some variations throughout the song. And then the bridge. Bridge is only in one part, and the line repeats a few times, each with a slight variation. So those are the 4 main parts. And once you learn those 4 lines, because none of the 4 of them are particularly difficult, it's just knowing those 4, then you can really start mapping out and piecing together the song with the structure. So in this case, it starts off on the intro riff, and that just repeats into the verse. So the first verse is actually a combination of the intro riff and the verse riff. It's kind of a longer verse. You might even almost think of the first part as like a pre-verse, but it truly is like just one longer verse. So that's just going to keep playing. The verse goes and you just keep playing it. There's no variation at all. It goes right into the main verse line, and the vocals are just continuing on top of it. So it all just feels like one big verse. So the thing about the verse line I found is it actually goes on for quite a while, so it's very easy to get lost in where you are if you don't pay attention. Let me show you what I mean. The main part of it is the arpeggiated kind of walk down feel, and so that's just going back and forth between a minor third formation and a major third formation, and then it does a walk-up. And the walk-up will alternate. So the first time through, it goes like that, and then the second time through, it's a little bit elevated. And it's just a basic major scale pattern, but it's a subtle difference. So if you forget where you are, the odds or the evens and the times you're going through, it's very easy to get messed up. So that's one thing to just watch out for, is kind of know where you are in the line so you have the right walk up. Now, once you get through that, then you're going to move on to the chorus. The chorus is, pretty straightforward. I do play it differently than the previous bass player, and that's okay, because the chorus is one of those where it's more about the feel of the song. It's about the feel of it. You don't need to hit the exact notes. You don't need to hit necessarily the exact rhythms except for certain parts. So he plays it a little bit differently, but my approach was to just make sure that I kind of got the same feel. So now, this part is a very specific rhythm because all of the instruments are hitting the rhythm on there. So while the rest of it is hitting the chord changes, the rhythm isn't quite as important. The end of the phrase, that part is, because you've got to hit that with all the other instruments. Now, there's a lot of variations of the chorus line. It repeats a couple of times in each chorus, so it goes through twice. On the second time of all of the choruses, when you're on this, what is that? That is a G sharp for those paying attention at home. First fret of the second string. So the second time through, it's always going to have a specific rhythm pattern. So that's going to be the pattern. The first time, it's just writing the note and playing the pattern. On the second time of the chorus, so after the second verse, there's actually going to be a fill there. And this is one that's particular because it really matches the drums. So I think I played the fill a little bit differently in terms of the notes. It's just kind of a basic box pattern, so it's not anything crazy, but the rhythm and the fact that it's a fill is the important part. So that's the fill that goes in there. And that happens on the second chorus. And then on the ending, it's a double chorus. The first chorus is of the first part of the double chorus is like the first chorus, where it's just the rhythm fill. The second part of the double chorus is like the second chorus, where you have the full fill. The only difference there, it's very, very mild, is on the first fill, I'm very staccato. Second fill, I really hold out just to give it a little bit of a differentiation. All right. So it's very subtle, and it's probably the sort of thing that you may not notice if you're watching live, but I do it because I do like having slight variations. So that's the chorus line. You can see it's all kind of the same, little differences, little fills, little things to watch out for. So the last piece is the bridge, and the bridge is a pretty basic. That's the basic line. The important thing there is that during the first part of the bridge, it's just bass and drums. So it's just important to make sure that it's very clear and articulate, no fret buzz. You don't need to do anything fancy. In fact, doing anything fancy during that part's bad, but it needs to be solid and executed well. Now, once the guitars come in, then it's the same line, but at the end of the phrase are just little accents. And that's going to be kind of based on what the guitar is doing at the time. So you can see at the very end, it just does a full walk down, and that actually walks right into the chorus. And that's that double chorus I was telling you about. So that's it. That's how I approached learning the song. Break it down into 4 lines after internalizing it. And then once I knew the 4 lines, then I could really lay out the structure in detail, figure out the little tweaks, so that way I could know the variations, the fills, the timing specifics I need to know. And here's the thing, I didn't necessarily know the line perfectly. Once I got in the room and we were playing it, there was definitely some things that were off. But that was okay because I knew enough of the song that we played it all the way through, and it was the sort of thing where even where I was off, if we were playing it live, everyone would have been happy. No one would have noticed the mistakes. So the things that I got wrong were little things that are pretty common. So if you're playing by ear and you're trying to pick out specific notes, sometimes the fifth, because the fifth is in everywhere, most of the chords are going to have the fifth there. It's very easy to pick out the fifth, and that's what I'm very guilty of. I'll always throw the fifth in there the wrong way. But the nice thing is when you have a fifth in there, it doesn't always sound wrong. It just technically is wrong. So like the guys would point out those things once I joined the band, like, oh, it's not the fifth, it's here. Also very common if the guitar players are doing inverted chords. Very common because then the lowest note is the fifth, but the root is actually not the lowest note. Things like that. So I didn't get it perfect. And the key about an audition is you don't necessarily need to get it perfect, but you've got to be able to show that you know the song well enough and that you have the capacity to play it. And that's what I was able to do when I auditioned with August specifically. As we played it, and it sounded pretty good. Looking back, there was definitely stuff that was wrong, but that's okay. So now I want to give you 3 tips for when you audition for a band. The first is do your research. Go out on the internet, try to find out what you can, what the music is, if there's any videos out there, if there is any live shows, things like that. If you can download the music, download the music. Go, spend the $1.99 or whatever it is to get the tracks that you need to learn. Ask questions. You're not expected to know everything going into the audition. The more that you know going in, the better prepared you are, and the better you'll do, and ultimately the band wants you to be successful. So ask questions. If you're not sure questions to ask, I'm going to put up a list of potential questions. You don't need to ask all of them. In fact, I would recommend not asking all of them, but just pick out the ones that make the most sense for your situation. I'm going to put them up so you can pause the video and jot them down or take a screenshot, and I'll do that right now. Okay, so now that you have the questions, you've done your research, you know what you're doing, make sure you prepare. Just having the information is not preparing. That's like preparing for preparing. Make sure you learn the songs as best as you can. Make sure you show up when you're supposed to. Don't be a typical musician and show up whenever. Actually show up on time at the right location. Bring the gear you need. You don't want to be the guy that shows up at a audition and you don't have a tuner, or you don't have a cable that works. You didn't test your gear, your amps on the fritz, whatever it is. Don't be that guy. Show up prepared, knowing the songs with the gear. Be professional. And the third tip is to also, despite all the preparation and being professional, you still want to be yourself. Because ultimately, if they invite you into the band, you join the band, it's all about relationships. All of the successful bands I've been in have been with people I really care about. True friendships, and a lot of them I didn't know ahead of time. In fact, most of the musicians I've played with, I've met through people and that I did not know. But you build these relationships, lifelong friendships. You have to be yourself. They have to like you. You have to like them. There's very few bands out there, at least at the local level. There are probably a lot more national bands that are actually, making a lot of money, and it's people will swallow their pride to do that because of the money. But to be honest, we're not making money. We're local musicians. We do this for the love of the music. So you also have to have that love for the people that you're doing it with. Otherwise, it's not worth it. I've dropped out of bands because of people I didn't get along with. I've seen bands break up because of it. It happens all the time. So make sure you are who you are, so that way you know if you like the people and if they like you and all of those things. All right, so those are my tips for auditioning, how to make sure you have a good first impression. There is a full playthrough for August where I go through the entire song. Be sure to check that out. You can play along to it, and I will see you in the next video.